Hey everybody, welcome to On Location with Harvey and Gabby. I'm Harvey and that's Gabby right over there. Today we're joined by Epic, no, sorry, not Epic, Epoch? How do you say that? Oh no, I should have asked.
I think there's a few different ways to say it, and those are all correct. So yeah, you're good.
Epoch Wellness.
Epic.
Epic.
I don't know if you guys can, my mic just went away. Hopefully you guys can hear me.
No, we can hear you.
Great. So I guess first off, how did you guys kind of start Epoch Wellness? And what is it about?
Yeah, I think for me, it just came from a place of working a lot. I mean, I think we all know a lot about that, just working and maybe being a little bit tired and needing a refresh. And it just made me think of ways where I could help myself with that. And that's how kind of Epic Wellness started, and it sparked there. And it made me think of Tabitha, who I met through a friend named Marcus, and she has a huge wealth of information when it comes to like traditional Chinese medicine, something that I am not super familiar with. I just have little bits and pieces from my parents. So that's kind of when I reached out to her and we had this conversation, and that's where this grew. So Tabitha, if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, I remember you reaching out like a few months ago, and you're like, oh man, I'm tired. I'm at this like holiday blues. I'm feeling kind of stuffed, and I'm wanting some type of cleanse. And I remember you mentioning like a juice cleanse, like a detox cleanse. And you're like, oh, well, I like that concept of bringing something healthy in the winter, like a wellness type of thing. But how do we make it our own? How do we make it coming from a place of Vietnamese, Chinese culture, TCM? And then we just started, I think we were just spitballing around with these ideas. And then I was like, okay, I kind of get the idea of a juice cleanse, but that is like not a Chinese concept, or it's not an Asian concept. So how do we make it work for us? And how do we make it align with your Vietnamese restaurant, with the vision, and also like coming from my desire to really promote and play with traditional ancestral medicine and wisdom, and make it really accessible, make it really practical. And why not do it with like Edmontonians? Like, why don't we make it Edmonton specific? We're not trying to like reinvent the wheel or anything. There's tons of TCM, like modern TCM things out here already, but I don't know, it was just like a fun thing for us to play with, the concept.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's hard for like a lot of younger people to kind of get into traditional Chinese medicine. How was that something you decided you were interested in and wanted to get into?
Yvonne, do you have thoughts?
I'd love to hear about your journey, actually.
Before we start both your journeys, it just dawned on me that we never actually introduced either of you.
Yeah.
So this is Tabitha and Yvonne, everyone who's watching. Sorry.
It's my second one.
Big two.
Yeah, that's right.
I like talked to you guys earlier.
Edit this out.
Yeah, this is all getting cut. But yeah, to bring it back to the folks at home, I guess the question was the youth, and how did you kind of connect with them with medicine?
Yeah, I mean, this is an ongoing thing for me. I think right now it's just a new, like a realized passion of mine, and like working with primarily second gen Asians, not to gatekeep or to separate anything else, but I'm noticing like, oh, I'm really excited about just bringing back and reminding our own community of this wealth of knowledge. And that in particular, obviously it's the younger generation. They're the ones that maybe they've been assimilated in our Canadian culture so much so that they have forgotten about this medicine, our culture, and there are so many misconceptions or just not knowing about it. And so to kind of bring it back and be like, yo, this is like our birthright. There's all this wealth of knowledge. There's so many other people that are recognizing this. You see acupuncture, you see TCM, you see cupping in the Olympics. There are a lot of people, like the rest of the world is catching on, and they're seeing how useful it is, how effective it is, how important it is. And so I'm like, yo, who better to talk about this medicine or explore this medicine than our own people, and to really reclaim it. I mean, everyone gets to experience Chinese medicine and ancestral medicine, but I was just like, wow, I really want to focus in on younger people rediscovering this, and finding relevancy to this.
Love it. I know you just mentioned misconceptions. Like, what are some misconceptions?
I mean, Yvonne, what are some, like, throw them out?
I think all of us growing up in Canada for the majority of our lives, I think, and doing post-secondary, it's like we're used to kind of like the scientific method and drugs and medicines being regulated and approved through bodies like, I mean, the FDA is American, but it's just something that's all in our psyches. And I think maybe that's what many of us think is the correct way or the better way. But, but in the back of our pantries, at my mom's house, there's all these herbs and things that I don't really know anything about. Like, we just consume them, but didn't know the history of it. So it's like, wait, there's something missing here in that kind of, So sorry, back to misconceptions. Yeah, like maybe like what is correct and what's better. And there's just these ideas that are swirling. But Tabitha, what do you think about the misconceptions?
She's ready.
I guess to make it easier, what's one that you like see maybe like TikTok shorts, anything that everyone is doing that you're like, oh my gosh, please like consult or talk to someone before you go ahead with this? Because like, while there are like with everything, like there's solutions, but sometimes like the solutions are for like your particular body type, skin type, and people are like, no, but I heard that this is good for you. So I'm like, yeah, but did you talk to anyone? And did you like at least walk through some steps that would like confirm that you're like, hey, your complexion, like your oily skin or you're dry, like, because it could have adverse effects, but like work for other people kind of thing.
Oh, I see that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, Yvonne, do you have something on the top of your head?
No, go for it. No, I was just thinking of that type of misconception. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I can't draw from one specific instance. I'm not on social media very much, so I don't know what's like been trending with Chinese medicine. I know with short form media and just like the internet culture, I think there's a lot of how do we get like short bits of like information in like a few seconds. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna teach you an acupressure point that's good for sleep, or I'm gonna like drink this thing with goji berries because it will do this. And I think that in itself is a bit of a misconception with Chinese medicine, because the entire philosophy of it is way more nuanced and way slower. And so to just do a quick fix, that in itself is a very Western concept.
Like
to think about that. And I think that's what, like, Yvonne and I, we go back and forth about how do we make like this philosophy and this understanding of like a slower way of healing and like just, I mean, ultimately it's like gathering self-awareness and attunement, and then from this place of stillness, then you can like understand what works for you or what doesn't. I think that really is, maybe this is a more of a big picture type of misconception, or this like desire that maybe is misaligned.
Okay. Well, okay. I wanted to ask you, I guess, either both or one at a time. Maybe I'll guide it because I've never done 4 talking heads at once. So I'll try to do the MC thing better. We'll go Tabitha and then Yvonne. But like, when did you kind of discover that this was something that not only you were interested in, but you kind of wanted to pursue a further path in, and like kind of embrace it? Because I know that like with some of the folks we've talked to, there seems to be this like odd phase in life where like you almost are pushing away culture, and you're like, I want to, you know, like especially if you've immigrated, like I'm sure most of us have, like you like push away like, I'm Canadian, and then eventually like as you grow up, you're like, now I want to be more in tuned with where I come from and culture and everything. So when did it kind of really happen where you were like, hey, I like this, and then you pushed it further, and then you kind of like, I want to do more in this field?
Man, that's such a good question.
Sometimes I have those.
No, I see myself going further.
No.
I feel really blessed that I'm second generation. My parents grew up in Hong Kong, and I grew up in a household like maybe many others that our culture was like quite intact. We spoke Cantonese in the house. I went to Chinese school on Saturdays at U of A. I ended up volunteering to become a Cantonese teacher. And I've always been like I've had this like nostalgia and sentimentality towards Chinatown culture and whatnot as a child. And when I was 17, I graduated high school, and I joined a program called Katimavik, and it changed my life. And it really opened me up to different avenues of living, maybe more unconventional ways of living. And so I really had this experience of like traveling around Canada, experiencing different livelihoods. A lot of it had to do with farming and working with the land and working with plant medicine. And at that time, I was also really into Eastern philosophy. And I traveled a lot, and I had, worked on a lot of farms, worked with plants, and it became more and more evident that I loved working with my hands and like practically, but I wanted to do more. And so I was like, well, I really like working with plant medicine. I'm really interested in Eastern philosophy and like longevity practices and all these like esoteric things. I love learning languages. I love traveling. Why don't I just go to China and study Chinese medicine? It just seemed like, I don't know, it just seemed like a no-brainer to me. And so I lived in China. I moved to China, did my undergrad there in a city called Jinan. And like China, it sounds really dramatic, but like China broke me. I had all these ideas of what it was to be Chinese. And I really thought I knew. I had a little bit of like hubris, and I got there and I was like, whoa, no, you have to, you are a guest in China, but like China is a pretty intense host. And I really learned a lot of things there. And I think honestly, Gabby, to pinpoint a moment, I think when I came back to Canada and I had some reverse culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
It was really connecting and slowly discovering people like Yvonne, people like our friend Marcus, and all these other second-gen Chinese or Asians who were also really interested in this path of being like, wait, actually, there's something precious here. I can't quite pinpoint what it is, but it's interesting, and I see there's value in it. So back around COVID, a little bit before COVID, we started this group called the Chinese Diaspora Sharing Circle, and yeah, and there was maybe, I don't know, 24 of us, and it was just a bunch of us that had like Asian roots, and we would meet up every so often. And there was this one guy that did Chinese calligraphy, and then one person taught us how to make dumplings, and we just all came together, and we all kind of shared our desire to like connect more with it. And so I think that was like a big accumulation of all these things from a more inward kind of interest, curiosity, and then really like immersing myself in Asian culture, and then really coming back and being like, oh, I think there's something there. I think there's something really interesting there. Long story.
No, that was fantastic. A great answer.
I kind of wanted to back up a little bit. Like you said, when you went to China, you had sort of an idea of what like maybe being Chinese is before you went there. Did you kind of have that with like traditional Chinese medicine? Like you were like, this is what I thought traditional Chinese medicine was, but you kind of realized you learned it from like a Western perspective, and then you got there and they were like, no, this isn't really what it does, kind of thing?
That's a good question. No.
Oh,
No, because kind of like what Yvonne was saying, you know, she grew up, we grew up with the Asian medicines in the back of the cabinet, and we just did it. It was so normal. So it was ingrained. There was that experiential understanding, kind of like what Yvonne was talking about. And so I went directly to China to study with my undergrad. So there wasn't so much of like a Western education on it. Yes, I did read books in English about it, but I don't think I felt that with Chinese medicine. I think truly it became from a theory to experiential understanding of concepts like yin and yang. Because I feel like in China, it's just so apparent. You know, they live a totally different worldview, and the way that they see the world is completely different. It is like yin and yang. You see it all the time. You know, Chinese medicine, this Chinese ways of thinking is so integrated. You cannot separate those things. I remember one of my like first year professors in the foundations of Chinese medicine, he said, you cannot separate Chinese medicine and Chinese culture. You can't learn one without the other. And so like growing up, even we were second gen, but like growing up, we were steeped in that culture, whether we understood it or not.
That's a really good answer.
Yeah, that's fantastic. No, I wanted to briefly kind of touch base. You had said something that was like very profound and kind of caught me a bit off guard. You said that kind of when you got there that like it broke you to be there. Not that Harvey, geez, but like I was gonna say.
Wait, what did Harvey joke about?
Harvey just like laughs because he thinks that I'm always trying to dig for like tell me your pains kind of questions. But I'm always kind of thinking of because
Yvonne, you're next.
yeah, that's right. We're gonna dig through everyone's trauma here. No, but I was trying to think like because I'm someone who I spent like when I immigrated here, got here, spent so long here that by the time I had gone back to kind of visit the Middle East, it was like a huge culture shock for me. And I learned that not even like simple things like the slang I was using, terms are like, we don't use that anymore. And like like various things that like I wanted to eat in dishes, like, you know, like the older generation eats that now. No kids. I'm like, oh my God, like it was just a huge thing. And I feel like in a sense, I had like a huge like I was excited to go over, visit, be there. But then after a while, I was like, I feel like a fraud, and I feel like I'm not even that Middle Eastern because like all I can do is kind of speak the language half decently, enough to be conversational, but not enough to like feel like I belong. But like after spending some time, that happened. So my question to you was going to be like, what is it that you found that kind of like was that big of a shock, or like what advice would you give someone who maybe has not been there in a hot minute and is trying to go there, visit, and integrate again?
Oh man, that's so good.
Yeah.
The thing that broke me was the bureaucracy. Really, like it was the culture.
Oh.
You know, I remember like yes, I have yellow skin, or like, you know, I'm Asian, but I've been cultured in through Western education, and it like in the Western world. And so when I came to China, I had all these ideas of like, okay, things need to be efficient in this way, and like they need to be ordered, and like why is everything taking forever? And I got so irritated by the perceived inefficiency of things. And I remember I like was clashing with my school and the dean, and I had the audacity to like go straight to my dean and talk to her and stuff like that, which is like you don't do that in Asian culture. You don't do that. But I was coming from this like Western mindset of like really trying to like bull in a China shop, like just get things done. And that's not China. That's not Asian culture. That's not Chinese culture. There is like, you know, you move with water. It's way more nuanced. And so I find it's so funny because like with my brutishness, what brought me down to my knees was how futile that like energy was. And the thing that brought me down was like, and the thing that held me was like the softness of China. And so it was just this like, it was this this like overarching lesson of like yin and yang. And it's just so beautiful. Yeah, like China's so, it's so hard to pin down. China is like, you know, when you're trying to put a ball underwater and you're trying to like holding down, that's China. And now I'm kind of waxing poetic, but there's the first line of the Tao Te Ching, and it goes Dao Ke Dao, Fei Chang Dao, and it means the Tao that can be named is not the Tao, and like that's China. Is like the China that can be named is not China. Like it's so complex and nuanced and crazy, and that's what I got to taste. I'm not saying that I'm this great understanding person that can like share all of this with the world, but I'm just saying I got to taste it. And so now I know the difference. And I also want to speak, Gabby, about like your experience going back to the Middle East and how like we have like it's been encapsulated our learning of our culture because our immigrant parents came, or like you came, and then like the world moves on in the Middle East. Or like the world moves on in Hong Kong. Like I went last year and I had like a huge crisis. No, oh my gosh, it's not the same as, you know, as it once was. And there's some grief there for sure.
It's yeah, I will agree to that, because even some of the phrases and slang that I said, like even amongst like peers like my age, like what? And like I was like, what's going on? And they're like, we don't really use that anymore. That's like a
That's an
2000s
outdated
term.
thing.
And like, and I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean 2000? And then I realized like, oh yeah,
we don't dab anymore.
yeah. So yeah, like I know, like, and then all the stuff that like they're trying to catch me up on, I'm like, I feel so overwhelmed that I'm trying to like, then like they don't want to speak because now I'm worried that every like second word or phrase is gonna, you know, cause someone to like raise their eyebrow and be like, how old is this person? Like, what's going on? So yeah, and then eventually once you kind of get the feel of everything, it's cool. But you're right, it does feel like I was in like my own little time capsule of like, hey, and then when I got there, I was catching up. And now with like technology and, you know, like everything, it's so fast. And you feel like you're catching up because now you can go to like various pages and stuff to like kind of get a taste of, but at the same time not, unless you go and experience it for yourself. One question I kind of wanted to ask is if like, I know some people have reservations about kind of going back to find out, explore, and connect with their like heritage culture and everything. What advice would either of you kind of give? Yvonne, I'm going to go to you first, and then we're going to come back to Tabitha. If you have any kind of reservations about going back to just learning, seeing, experiencing, and connecting with your culture, what would you say to someone?
Reservation. You know, I think kind of what we were talking about earlier, you know, there's this desire for us, you know, being in Canada to assimilate and be like the dominant culture. Like I had that for many, many years. But I think for me, wanting to look back actually didn't really happen necessarily with my family. I think because there was war, it's like Vietnam, there's escaping the war. So we didn't have a super strong culture, like not necessarily like Tabitha had. Like there wasn't an emphasis on language or culture or anything. It was more just like assimilate, let's try and just do better and, you know, make money and educate ourselves. But it wasn't until like I worked with, and I think I'd mentioned this before in kind of another conversation that we've had, like in like Blackfoot elders, and I saw like this deep connection and wanting to reconnect with their culture, and it was like a mirror to me, and it made me look like, wait, what about my roots? And it was just this beautiful thing where seeing the elders wanting to connect with Indigenous youth and leaving me in a spot where like, wait a minute, I want to look at my own culture and more deeper rather than just like food, you know. I have a Vietnamese restaurant, yes, but it's so much deeper than that. And it's like finding those lost things that get lost in like war and parents who are refugees and yeah, there's something lost there that needs to be found. So I definitely encourage everyone to look back because it's enriching, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tabitha, any notes, comments?
Oh man, I'm just like, I'm getting emotional like listening to Yvonne talk about how just like lost and found, and like just the treasures that we hid or let go of because of things like war or survival, and assimilation. Yeah, that's there's a lot there to unpack. And I think like what like to like switch it over, it's like, oh my gosh, getting to travel to a place that you like ancestrally have lineage to is so epic. I read somewhere, and maybe I'm butchering this fact, but I read somewhere where like the stomach digests, it takes like up to 4 to 6 generations to change your gut biome.
Really?
Yeah, to the culture of like the new land.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah,
Wow.
and you know, and I just went for a walk with a girlfriend who just came back from Hong Kong and Asia, and she lives here in Canada now. And she was like, "Oh man, my hair was better, my skin was better, I was feeling better." I was like, "Yeah, it's a no-brainer. That's where we're from. Like we're produced there." And so, what a cool experience to just try it out. Like, there's no like, yeah, maybe it gets awkward, like Gabby said. We have these ideas and we have to confront them, but ultimately there's so much healing in it, there's so much reward, if you just push through a little bit and really hone in on what a beautiful experience that can be. And then my like one specific tip is to really lean on family. I think every time I go back to Hong Kong, the primary reason for me to go back to Hong Kong is to see family. And there's something about honoring the elders. There's something about just showing up for family. You know, our parents made the decision, or previous generations made the decision to leave for whatever reason. So how beautiful it is that we get to come back. Yeah, just really lean on family. There's lots there.
Oh, I I asked the questions and I'm like, yeah, great question, Gabby, good job.
Blown
But then
away.
I get the answers and I'm like, I sometimes like have this whole thing where I get lost between like, wow, great, and I'm like, oh wait, yes, I have to still do this interview and
Yeah.
ask questions.
I
Harvey, were you
actually
gonna say? Shoot.
had a quick question for you. Earlier, before we actually started, we had a quick conversation about how we are the people to tell the stories of our own tradition. And you mentioned something about decolonizing traditional Chinese medicine a little bit. What did you mean by that?
Oh, that's a bit of a hot topic thing. Oh man, it's so loaded. And I'm still trying to untangle it all. Oh man, where do I even start? Yeah,
I can try to give some aid here, but I'm just gonna try to push it from the perspective of like the Middle East, and like to us a lot of like history and such, because the region is old, much like various regions of Asia, Africa and everything. Like it's many a times history is written by the victors, and then nowadays we are learning very quickly that, wait a minute, this isn't right, and then as soon as you trace it to like, when did this kind of strew away from what we had and what we knew, it seems to kind of coincide with like when there were wars and certain factions were trying to take over, and like it impacted not only like the history demographic and everything through that, but also how history was taught going forward. So was it a case of like that was kind of what encroached in and it's trying to release from that and go back? Or am I just throwing in the dark?
I
Yeah.
To quickly expand, I guess from like what it sounded like when you guys were talking about earlier, from what it sounded like to me is also just like on things like social media. Sometimes I'll see a person talking about like traditional teas and like tea ceremonies, but they're not really from that culture, but they're speaking on it with such like authority, and it
For
makes me
sure.
kind of wonder like, hey, how come a Chinese person is talking about this? You know?
It's so valid. I think, oh man, Harvey, yeah. I'm just like so passionate about this that I don't even, I'm like, I think to start off, what do I mean by decolonizing Chinese medicine? I think, yeah, essentially just goes back to who are the people telling these stories and who's benefiting from this. And there's a lot of camps, there's a lot of ways to go about it. And I want to be able to have this conversation in the most nuanced, sophisticated, like spacious way. Because it's not about saying like you did this or like you can't do this or like we're the ones to do this. That's like really not the point. I think it's more about how do we uplift the people that can really benefit from this, like our community. I'm kind of fumbling with my words a bit. But I think about how when I came back to Canada and I got my license for acupuncture, and I was realizing that like, oh yeah, there are predominantly like a certain type of people that are practicing in Canada, and there's different ways of, like, even in the Chinese medicine world, in the acupuncture world, there are like 4 camps, I would say, of people that there's the Asian practitioners that are like, we got to like assimilate and we got to make this as scientific and like speak the language, like translate it so a wider audience can understand this. We got to do what we got to do to modernize this and to bring it out to the people. And that might be kind of like the social media people. And then there's another group of maybe more like Asian practitioners that are like, no, we need to like hold this integral. We got to keep this pure. We got to do it the traditional way. None of that other stuff. But there's a little bit of gatekeeping energy there. And then maybe there's like the non-Chinese who are like, oh, we like, let's just run with this. This is amazing. This could be like a cash cow. And like, and also like, it's super necessary. There's so many sick people in the world, so many like chronic issues. And Chinese medicine actually happens to be really good at addressing chronic illnesses and things that maybe Western medicine, they don't have, they're just not so there yet. For example, like autoimmune things or things that maybe like Western biomedicine is like, okay, we got surgery and maybe some tests. Like, this is what we got. Chinese medicine can really fill in the gaps with things like that. And then the last camp, I would say, are maybe non-Chinese who are like also really purists, and they're like, we want to do it a certain way, which also is kind of like what Harvey's talking about. It's like, oh, this person really seems to like have a lot of backing with what they're talking about, but they're not, Asian presenting or whatever. Like, oh, like maybe you're feeling a sort of type of way about that. So I kind of went a bit specific there, but there's a lot happening. And I think all four groups or like all types of people, what they have to say is really important. But I think ultimately it just goes back to who's telling the stories, who's benefiting from this, and like, what's the legacy we want to pass on? Why are we doing what we're doing? Yeah. And there's also an element of like democratizing Chinese medicine. I feel like when people think about acupuncture in the Western world, they think of like spa and it's like a fun thing to do, where it's like, that's like a minor thing of Chinese medicine. And it's way more than that. It's just the tip of the iceberg. I think a lot of people are like, wow, they see how like great cupping is or how great gua sha is, and like they see how great like acupuncture is, and now there's like dry needling, and now like other practitioners can practice it. So there's a lot of that, and then there's also like sometimes a lot of people can't even afford these services, right? Like acupuncture can be quite costly. So is it really reaching like a wider audience, a wider community? So there's some questions there. There are a lot more questions and feelings.
A lot of a lot of mystery.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are way more knowledgeable and like people that can speak to this, but it's a really cool conversation, and I want to keep having it.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a bit of a balance between like people who are trying, who might not be Asian presenting, but they are trying to like bring it more to attention. And then there's people like, do you guys remember the boba incident on a show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but they tried to rebrand boba tea as something that is a mystery liquid that needs to be modernized, and I feel like it takes away from that. So I feel like trying to figure out that balance is super difficult. Like, how do you guys feel like is a good way to approach that?
Sorry,
Oh,
was that the like the Surfshark kind of pitching
yeah,
of
yeah. I don't know
boba
if we're allowed
tea?
to say the.
Well, no, I'm just trying to explain it so in case the audience is like, "What are you talking about?" So I can give them some
Oh
place
yeah,
to. So they're not like, "What's going on here?" Yeah, that was when they kind of tried to pitch boba tea as like a drink in the markets, and it was not done by anyone that remotely seemed to be presenting or know of the culture. And then they're like, "This tea is going to be great. It's going to be packaged," and then it's like, I remember seeing it too and thinking, this
and they
already
didn't mention,
exists.
like, they did not
And
mention
like,
where it was from. They did not mention
yes,
what it
yes.
is. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think like what's a good way to balance between like those two um trains of thought or like practice, I guess? Like how do you spread it to a wider audience without like I guess like disrespecting it?
I think this is what like Yvonne, and I think Yvonne, you can speak more on this as well. I feel like that's something that Yvonne and I have been continuously talking about, because like again, it's not about gatekeeping this at all. It's not about that, really. It's like how do you have integrity and honor this medicine, but also make it so it's accessible to everyone? It really, I don't know. We're trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. And I think like to your point of kind of there's all these narratives that are happening around, let's say traditional Chinese medicine or herbal wellness and that type of thing. And I think it's just continuing to talk and have these conversations like that we're having right now, and just, yeah, continue to share our own stories. It's like, the danger of a single story. It's like, as long as we're all sharing our stories, like Gabby's stories and Harvey, to have that, like we all have our stories. And I think that's kind of one way of countering other voices, some that can be louder and more authoritative in, sounding, but yeah, we just have to continue.
Yeah.
I guess like speaking about teas, since we're kind of, I know I love tea, Gabby loves tea, but we often don't have a lot of knowledge beyond like what we're served at dim sum, maybe. So with you guys, I know you guys have a lot of different blends of tea. Could you talk about some of your favorite blends and what they do or what they're about?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Tabitha take the lead on this one,
Sure,
actually. Yeah,
sure.
if that's okay with you.
Yeah, thanks, Yvonne. And feel free to chime in as well.
Mhm.
So I want to preface that like the teas that we offer, that Yvonne and I have worked together on, they are herbal teas. So they're not tea from the tea plant, but they're herbal teas. They're blends. And so the whole concept was something seasonal. And so following the rhythms of nature, which is like a very strong tenet of Chinese medicine, and then specific to Edmonton. So we were like brainstorming, we were like, what's good? And we narrowed down on Edmonton being cold. And so a tea that addresses just like this cold winter in Edmonton, and also a tea that addresses the dry climate of Edmonton. And then also a tea that addresses depression or seasonal affective disorder. And so kind of like a more like a mood enhancing type of tea. And off the top of my head, I don't remember them all, but the one that I personally have been drinking myself quite a bit is the one for seasonal affective disorder. I experienced that quite a bit, and it's a simple blend of rosebud and finger citron. So it's like a dried fruit peel, very bitter. We offer the tea with a little bit of like a simple syrup, like a natural syrup to add to taste. I mean, if you're a brave soul, you can just have it bitter, but that's like a way to make it more accessible and more drinkable. Yeah, is there more you want me to speak on, or Yvonne?
No, I was just, you know what, there's the one tea that we have, it's like hawthorn berry green tea, and another one. I think I haven't put in the time to kind of consume all of them regularly, so it's kind of like, it's still like kind of a new thing. But there's one where, you know, I work in a restaurant and I'm sampling a lot of foods. It's like fried foods, and it really helps with like that heat, that I guess
Ooh.
in Vietnamese it's like hot foods, and in Chinese it's, what is it?
Yeah. Hey, yeah.
Hey, yeah. So I think that one is one that I lean on often when I'm kind of overindulging. So
And that's a good one. Like the hawthorn berry is so great as like a digestive. So it does cut the fat. Green tea is also great at cutting fat and like helping digest things that are heavier to digest, like fried foods. And you can drink the thing about these teas is you can drink them regularly. They're not hyper tailored in a way that it's addressing one specific issue. So like anyone can drink it, and there are very mild, if any, side effects. Which is really great. Yeah.
You just said something about eat hay. Like, I've been trying to explain what that means to all my friends for such a long time, and I have yet to figure out how to do that. Do you think either of you could explain what that means?
Yvonne, do you have a quickie?
in Vietnamese, it's like now, so it's like hot. It's just like it heats up your body, but I can't explain beyond that. So yes, I also have a hard time explaining it. So I'm gonna defer to Tabitha
I'm gonna try my best. So I mean, if you want a quick answer, if you want to just translate it to a more Western biomedical understanding, I would just use the word like inflammatory. It's really inflammatory. It's really heaty, right? You think about something that's like causing heat. But if you want to break it down a little bit more, the way that Asians eat food is really intentional. And so every food or drink has a property. And so we just happen to divide them and use the terms like hot or cold or mild, cool, warm. And so every food has a property. And so the key of Chinese medicine is balance. And so if you know this one food is more on the hot side, on the more inflammatory side, well, then you want to combat it with something that's a little more on the other end of the spectrum, which is more anti-inflammatory. Say, like what Yvonne was saying, she's using green tea. So she's been trying all these new foods. They're really heavy. They're really rich, a lot of oils. That's super inflammatory. And so you're combating with something like green tea that cuts that a little bit. It's more cooling. And so it's important not to get too carried away with one,
Right.
property, because it really is about balance and your own body, right? Like learning, some people can eat a lot of fried foods and they can get away with it. Their bodies can just digest it. And then some bodies can't. So it's just cool being able to be your own doctor and figure out like, this food gives me like, little sores in my mouth, or like I get acne from it, or, oh man, this stuff gives me the runs. Like, so yeah.
I didn't expect the runs to come out.
Yeah,
I don't know how it just ended there.
Yeah.
Cut that out.
Yeah.
I know that, like, for me, I have a terrible eczema, so I guess that kind of counts as like heat hay a little bit. What is something you would recommend I drink regularly to soothe that?
Let me take a look at your tongue. I'm kidding.
Oh, actually, I don't know if I should. I have a short tongue.
Well, you know what? Okay, so again, just to go back on, there is no one size fits all. But I think with eczema, because there's different types of eczema. right? And so I think if you go back to your lifestyle and you think, okay, well, what am I consuming a lot? Are you consuming a lot of like heatier foods, more inflammatory foods? There are like specific foods that usually will cause a flare up for you, and you probably know better than me what causes them. For example, if you really want something concrete, I'd probably stay away from things like shrimp or certain seafoods. Sometimes that can cause flare-ups for people. I don't know if that pertains to you or not. Which I don't know.
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Like his
And
go-to meals all the time. Yeah. Go on.
maybe lay low on the hot pot and the spicy level on the hot pot.
I'll never get well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I know like stress is so annoying to use this word stress because it's so amorphous, and we like live in this stressful society. But it is like the reality is we have to admit that stress really does affect us. And so really being honest with ourselves, with yourself, and being like, okay, this thing is stressful. It causes me to make decisions that are maybe not so healthy. Maybe like this stress makes me want to eat certain foods or like not move my body or like stay up late or whatever it is. Really addressing that and being honest with that, and also like finding time to really listen to your body. Like how often do you just like sit, look out the window, and just like drink a cup of tea? Like how often do we do that? And so even that in itself is so healing. Yeah.
I wanted to touch on the stress thing because I feel like continually with my GP, that is something that every time he brings up, I'm like, is there such a thing where I can exist as like not stressed? Because I feel like I exist in like kind of mild to then higher, but I've never, and anytime, blood work, anything comes back, he's like, oh, you have this, is like, and looks like you're just like stressed. I'm like, I feel like that's a given. Is there like, can anyone ever like, is it like happiness where it's like, I have periods I'm happy. I don't know if I would say I'm happy all the time, right? Like, so can you get to a phase of like being not stressed, or is it just like manage stress and then you're really stressed, and those are the two tail ends there?
Man, this is something that Yvonne and I have talked about. I mean, Yvonne, you understand stress. I don't know if you want to talk about like,
You know what's funny? Yeah, Gabby, actually, yeah, we do talk about this a lot. And I think for us, like with Epoch Wellness, we're trying to, at its core, to make it not an unstressful project, like something that's holistic at its core. When we're like, oh, we want to release these drinks, in January. And, it doesn't happen because Tabitha has a lot going on. I have a lot going on. We have, our lives. And it's like, wait a minute, let's just slow down for a minute. And we had to really, at its core of Epoch Wellness, build that into it, which is really tough because like Tabitha is saying, and like we all notice, we are in a society that is not built like that. So it's like, we're trying to build our own projects and businesses and systems like differently, just trying to operate a little bit differently. So, I mean, I don't think that really helps you or maybe any of us for that matter, because we're in this environment. But I mean, slowly kind of it's a way of decolonization too. It's like, wait a minute, why are we, like in Vietnam, people are late all the time. It's like, that's just because that is life. We're not in this rigid environment. So
That's right, Gabby. It's in my genes. That's why I'm late.
Okay, that's enough. We're gonna cut this part out too.
No, yeah. Time is a cultural construct.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
And I want to piggyback off what Yvonne is saying. It's like, well, in a way, we're leading by example. By being like, hey, we're excited about this. We're so like jazzed about this idea, but we want to be intentional about the process and the journey of what we're doing. And because because at the end of the day, it's like you and I are the ones that are doing this. So we might as well make it sustainable and not burn out. And also like exactly what you said about society. I mean, it's such a myth. Like, have we ever stopped to question like why do things have to be convenient? Why do things have to be efficient? Why do we constantly have to be producing something? Like where's this coming from? That's a stress. And we as humans created that. I mean, there's like so many reasons for that, but it is a decolonization and a little bit of this like capitalism. I mean, beyond all these words, it's just like, how do we get back down to living in the proper rhythm? I think Gabby was like, okay, well, is stress just like a baseline thing? Do we have to? I agree. I think stress, there will always be stress. We need to have that tension. And like in the same thing in Chinese medicine, there's no stagnant balance. It's like you're constantly moving, right? You're constantly like wobbling. But when you get more attuned to your body, you start to understand the waves, and the waves don't become so extreme, or they just become more manageable, and more predictable. And so that's where like in our Eastern culture, that's why our ancestors, they looked to nature. Nature doesn't like, when something gets too extreme, it knows how to correct itself. And there is this innate wisdom in our own bodies, in our own beings. And so it's really about taking the time to slow down. I know it's easier said than done, but really just taking that time in whatever capacity to get back to that place. And so like our hope is that these drinks are just an invitation of that. They're a very easy, accessible, playful, convenient way to just be like, oh yeah, okay, well, I'm gonna get some like sandwiches or lunch at Yvonne's place. Oh, well, maybe instead of getting like a soft drink, I'm gonna have this tea instead, because that seems to like that will like complement, what I'm eating.
Actually, I see that you had some brews in front of you, Tabitha. What are you drinking right now? What are they?
Oh, okay. So I've got shout out to this amazing company called Grass People Tree.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I discovered Grass People Tree, and the founder, her name is Ray Liu, and she's from Guizhou province. She's now based in London. The specific tea blend is called Slow Mellow Yellow. So it's a yellow tea. It's a tea. I feel like yellow tea doesn't get a lot of spotlight. I think people think of
tea. This is actually the first time I heard about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's like there's 7 types of tea, and yellow tea is like, I might be getting this wrong, but it's like semi-fermented, I believe. No, sorry, it's semi-oxidized. Yeah. Don't quote me on that. But it's not as raw as green tea. And so it's a little, it's aged more a little bit. Yeah. So it produces a little bit of this like sweeter, it's not as sharp and stringent. But it's not as like earthy and grounding as say like a red tea or a black tea, like a pu'er, which are on the 2 extremes. So a yellow tea is a little bit more in the middle, and I felt it was appropriate to have this tea together. It's like mid-afternoon, kind of slowly the sun is setting, so I don't want anything that's too young and youthful, energizing, and I don't want anything that's like too heavy, because I haven't eaten anything heavy, so I think a black tea would be too much on an empty stomach.
Wanted to take a second to shout out Tabitha. You nailed it. It says oxidization is how it's.
Oh,
yeah. Boom.
Googling on the side.
Yeah, heck of points. Yeah, no, well, I wanted to, in case, just remember to add it. So, like little things. But I was like, nah, she got it. So no need to do any editing. Hooray.
well,
Success. Yeah.
Thanks,
Nailed it
Gab.
first try. Yeah, all good. All good. That's what I exist here for. I did want to say and kind of ask, you folks talked about like, having sandwiches, then the teas. How does one go about trying these teas? Because now you got me wanting to try teas, and I'm all out of drink now, so I'm just like,
What's the
like,
best
please,
thing?
yeah.
Yeah, actually, we do have a winter spring menu for Epoch Wellness, and you can actually order kind of a week's worth of teas from the website, or you can send an email to info@bunmediddy.ca. But to find out more, to kind of look at the menu and just see what's being offered, you can go to www.bunmediddy.ca/epoch. And you can actually have a look at the menu there, and there's contact information. And yeah, you can have a look at all the different brews and kind of the benefits. And yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Mhm.
Just because you mentioned it, and I was like, well, how does one?
How'd we
Yeah.
go?
Yeah.
No. And actually, yeah. And Tabitha and I, when we were talking about, the menu, we went through tons of different types of recipes. And I think Tabitha was just really thoughtful in putting together a menu that it's perfect for us in this area, this region. So yeah, it's kind of winter leading into spring. So yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Has there been like a popular one that you?
it's pretty new actually. Like we haven't actually launched quite yet. So
Ooh,
this is a
exclusive.
yeah, this is an exclusive.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely have a look and we can go from there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
As for me, the one that I like, which I shouted out already, was the
Yeah.
one for seasonal affective disorder. It's so
Mm.
simple. It's rose and finger citron.
I was trying to look at the name for it. Where?
Yeah,
Okay.
and yeah, I've been enjoying it quite a bit. Yeah,
What could you describe the flavor a little bit? Like, what is it?
it's pretty bitter
Oh.
because of the finger citron, and like Yvonne and I have been playing with the recipes ourselves and like trying them out in terms of flavor and palatability. And
Mhm.
so yeah, we had to scale back a bit of that finger citron and kind of up the rose. But I mean, it's beautiful. It smells lovely. You know, there's the rose smell. It's very floral, and then there is a little bit of that bitterness of the finger citron. Um, but yeah, if you really can't stand the flavor, you can dilute it, right, with some hot water. So it's just, it's an all day sipping kind of situation.
I know in like Chinese tea and in culture, drinking iced or cold things is like a big negative. But would this be something that is refreshing to drink in the summer, like ice? Like, is that available?
Oh man, I mean, yes,
Yeah.
it's not recommended, but if your constitution can handle icy drinks, then I'll give it a pass. I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect purist. I'll drink hot and cold drinks. Again, it just really depends on what your body can manage. Yeah, over ice is fine, or like just chilled is okay. Yeah, it's not the end of the world. Hopefully, you don't get the runs. If you do, don't do that.
Not
Stop.
again.
Yeah. That's actually Harvey's actual question.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
no. No. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of what my total blank here. Our fire went away while I remember this here for a second.
Oh, well, actually, we're almost out of time, but
Oh,
just before we wrap up, do you want to tell us where we can find you guys and how people might be able to order some in the future?
Yeah, definitely. So Epoch Wellness is offered via Bun Me Diddy Sandwich Shop here in Edmonton. So kind of an initial way of seeing what we have to offer is on the website. So that's www.bunmediddy.ca/epic. And that's where you can view all the menu. And yeah, reach out via phone or email. I'm happy to answer any questions. And that's kind of where you can place orders. So right now, the idea is to place like a week's worth of beverages. So you get like bottles. So it's really nice and like pre-brewed bottles, so it's really easy to consume. So like every day, like Tabitha's saying, like there's some that you could just sip all day, some where you'll take for 3 days, and then perhaps you'll choose 2 other drinks where you drink for the rest of the week. So there's kind of different ways to consume it depending on what you choose from the menu. So yeah. Did you have any other questions? Kind of.
Yeah. So I know you guys said you haven't officially launched yet.
Yeah.
When are you planning to do that?
It's kind of a quiet launch right now. So yes, so you are able to order immediately. So
Nice.
yeah.
It's like
We just
once
haven't done the big,
we enough orders, yeah.
yeah, that's right. That's right. We haven't done the big social media push or anything like that. We're really being intentional with how we launch this, and yeah, we want it to be as good for everyone else as it is for us. And yeah.
Yeah, and eventually, I mean, like spring, summer is coming up. Summer's
Yeah.
coming. We have that ready, like starting to be. It will be ready to go as well as
We're working on that.
things progress. Yeah,
Yeah.
and also this is kind of like beta. We're like this is like the beta product, so we're still playing around with packaging and flavor and how that works out. So we're super open to feedback.
Yeah.
And we want this to be collaborative. We want this to be exciting. We want this to be accessible. And yeah, would love to hear ideas as well. Maybe we'll come up with an eczema line.
Oh, please. Thank you.
I
That's
will
awesome. First
be
We'll call it, yeah, we'll call it the Harvey. It'll be great. I wanted to say just before anything, I think this was my question. Are you folks kind of considering, have you considered, maybe it's in your mind's eye kind of already, having like a tasting to try everything and different flavors and such? Because I know like being from the Middle East, like I feel like we've only ever had one form of tea, and then I came here and tried like green tea, and that's my entire experience with tea. Everything else I had to kind of uncover on my own. So it would be nice to kind of be like, okay, I understand like the flavors and stuff going through here and testing it out. So is that something you would be open to, or?
I love that idea. Yeah,
Yes.
the idea of a hosted event. You know,
Ooh.
we can start putting that into the works, but we do love that. And I think Tabitha was talking about a little bit about the bitterness of the finger citron and rose tea,
Mhm.
sort of related to that, and like tasting it and kind of like exploring that. And it's like bitterness is a really common flavor in a lot of herbal drinks and flavors.
Yeah.
Vietnamese and Asian flavors like bitter melon and stuff. And I think it's interesting to have, yeah, that'd be interesting to have kind of like a nice event to kind of go through those things and how to sweeten things and how to change the flavors. Yeah, yeah, I
That
love
sounds
that idea.
fun.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah, like medicinal tea tasting
Yeah.
or medicinal tea offering, just like even to get our palates like reacquainted with the bitter flavor, because there's a huge spectrum of bitterness. I mean, again, I'm like leaning on coffee. I feel like there's so much people are so into coffee and third wave coffee and the different flavors of that. But oh my goodness, tea and Chinese medicine and the herbs there are also packed with flavor. And I think in society, especially in like the North American society, everything is just laden with sugar, and we're so opposed to like bitterness. And so to really strip it back would be a really interesting experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
You'll be
I'm
the first to
excited.
know when we have a tea event.
Double exclusive. I
Oh.
like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wish we had more time to chat more with you guys. Like you were both very, very insightful about like traditional Chinese medicine and all these teas. Gabby, did you have any last questions before we?
No, the hour kind of went by. I just looked at I'm like, oh my gosh, he's right. Like it just zoomed by. Very informative, and thank you for also sharing kind of your experiences and how things were for you, and how you kind of discovered and found that this is what you enjoy and like, and how you connected. So that was always wonderful to kind of always love sharing that kind of discussion with the people behind, I guess, like the brands, the ideas, and the concepts. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Once again, I am Harvey. That's Gabby, Tabitha, and Yvonne from Epoch Wellness. Check them out at, what was it? bondmediddy.ca/epoch.
Right.
Yeah. Did I say that right this time?
Yeah.
I'm like, we're open to different names as well.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Great. Thank you guys so much. And we will see you all next time. Bye. Stop recording.
Recording. Okay, back. Okay, now.
Panic.
Now we can hear ourselves.
Panic.